Chapter 1: The Eye Beneath the Sea. Stormbreak Fortress learned to breathe again in pieces. First came the silence after the western rift closed. Then the crying. Then the shouting. Then, slowly, the ordinary sounds that proved a place had survived. Boots on stairs, horses stamping in frozen courtyards, kitchen fires being lit, soldiers arguing over bandages, prisoners asking for water in voices too small for the bodies that carried them. Snow fell over all of it. White. Steady. Almost gentle. Lin Yao did not trust gentle weather anymore. She stood on Stormbreak's highest wall 3 days after Mokang fell, looking west toward mountains that had tried to tear open the world. The green storm was gone. The sky had returned to winter gray. Below her, the fortress moved with the wounded discipline of a body learning which bones were still broken. The last step was gone. No execution platform remained above the gorge. Wei Han had ordered the edge sealed until a memorial could be built, not for commanders or heroes, but for everyone whose name had been fed into the rift and called necessity. Lin Yao approved. Monuments could lie, but empty spaces could accuse. Behind her, the western dragon seal slept beneath the mountain. Not peacefully. Nothing that ancient slept peacefully. But quietly enough. Its chosen stood at the far end of the wall, arguing with 3 officers who clearly regretted being assigned to speak with her. Shen Kaiangsu wore dark winter robes now instead of prison gray. The dragon seal mark wrapped around her right arm like a bracer made of green gold light, visible only when she allowed it to be. Her hair was still cut unevenly at her shoulders. She had refused 3 offers from fortress attendants to trim it properly. If Stormbreak has survived betrayal, riftfire, and Mokang's command, she had said, it can survive my hair. The attendants had not known whether to bow or flee. Kaiangsu was useful that way. Wei Han approached from the stairway carrying 2 reports and looking as though both had personally insulted him. Bad news, Lin Yao asked. Administrative news. Worse. Much. He handed her the first report. Stormbreak's prisoner lists. Lin Yao read the top page. 37 survivors had been pulled from the lower tunnels. 62 confirmed dead, more names still missing. The oldest prisoner had been held for 11 years. The youngest was 14. Her fingers tightened around the paper. Mokang did not build this alone. No. How many officers knew? Wei Han looked over the wall toward the fortress below. Enough that trials will take months. And not enough that everyone guilty will admit they knew. No one ever knows a crime is happening while it benefits them. Lin Yao glanced at him. Book 2 had changed Wei Han. Not softened him. That would have been too simple. The West had made him sharper in different places. He no longer wore his father's honor like armor. He carried it like a blade that had been broken, inspected, and reforged into something less beautiful but more honest. The green gold oath mark on his burned hand was covered by a glove, but Lin Yao could feel it answering the fortress whenever soldiers repeated the new border oath. For the living. Not perfect words. No oath was. But better than the old ones. Wei Han handed her the second report. This came from the capital by horse relay. Lin Yao opened it. The emperor's seal sat at the bottom, but the handwriting belonged to Asu. That was the first warning. Asu did not use formal phrases unless she was frightened and trying not to show it. Princess. The capital remains calm and public. The cold palace records are being copied under guard. Consort Ming's memorial tablet has been restored. His Majesty asks after your health, but says he will not command your return. Lin Yao paused there. That was new. Perhaps the emperor was learning. Slowly. Painfully. Like a man touching a wound each morning to check whether guilt still lived there. She continued reading. The Empress's faction has been receiving visitors at night. Prince Rui has not awakened. The physicians say his demon vein is gone, but his pulse sometimes moves backward. The Astronomical Bureau's lower vault was opened. It was empty. Lin Yao read that line twice. Empty. Yue Kaiyan had used the Astronomical Bureau for years. Star charts, forged prophecies, ritual accounts, demon records, guardian histories. If the lower vault was empty, either someone had cleared it before the purge or Yue Kaiyan had never been the only one hiding records there. The letter ended with one final line. Also, someone left a bowl of seawater outside your mother's palace. No footprints. No guard saw who placed it. The water reflected snow, though the capital had no snow that night. Lin Yao lowered the paper. Wei Han watched her face. The sea again. Yes. At sunset 3 days ago, the Heavenly Bell and Western Dragon seal had shown them a silver eye opening beneath dark water. The sea mirror. The third artifact. Lin Yao had hoped the vision might wait. Apparently ancient artifacts had poor manners and worse timing. Caiyingsu finished terrifying the officers and crossed the wall toward them. You both look like someone mentioned the ocean. Lin Yao handed her the letter. Caiyingsu read it quickly. Her expression changed at the last line. Mirror water. Wei Han looked at her. You know it. I know of it. Old Western Guardian records mention the Eastern artifact. The sea mirror does not reflect faces. It reflects what clings hardest to the person looking. Meaning? Caiyingsu handed the letter back. Regret, desire, fear, memory, lies, depends on the water's mood. Lin Yao looked east. Beyond the mountains. Beyond the capital. Beyond land. Water has moods now. Caiyingsu smiled faintly. You bonded with a judgmental bell, and I was chosen by an irritable dragon seal. Do not pretend this surprises you. Fair. Before Lin Yao could answer, the dragon seal pulsed beneath the fortress. Not loudly. But all three of them felt it. Wei Han's gloved hand clenched. Caiyingsu's mark brightened. Lin Yao's bell mark answered with a thin golden ache. From the courtyard below came a shout. A rider had arrived. By the time they reached the lower gate, soldiers had gathered in a cautious ring around a horse coated in salt. Not sweat. Salt. Its mane hung wet despite the freezing air. Its saddle blanket was stiff with dried sea foam. The rider slumped forward, wrapped in a blue-gray cloak crusted white at the edges. He was alive. Barely. Captain Luo helped pull him from the saddle. The man collapsed onto the snow, coughing seawater onto the stones. Seawater. At Stormbreak. Hundreds of miles from the eastern coast. Lin Yao knelt beside him. His skin was cold, but not frozen. His eyes opened once and fixed on her with desperate relief. Guardian Princess. Yes. He tried to bow while lying on the ground. That was never a good sign. Eastern Coast, he gasped. Governor Hai Ren sends, tribute, warning, apology. Which one? His mouth twitched as if he might laugh. Then he coughed more seawater. Caiyingsu crouched beside him and touched 2 fingers to his throat. His pulse is wrong. Wei Han looked at her. Wrong how? Like waves. The rider fumbled with the leather case tied to his chest. Lin Yao opened it. Inside was a glass jar, sealed with wax and silver thread. Dark seawater filled it to the brim. No matter how Lin Yao tilted the jar, the water inside did not move. On the lid was the mark of the Eastern Coastal Governor. Lord Hai Ren. Below it, written in an elegant hand, were 6 words. For the Guardian Princess's eyes only. Naturally. Lin Yao was beginning to miss enemies, who simply shouted. Wei Han said, "Do not open it here." The jar clicked. The wax seal broke by itself. Again, he said, "I advise faster." The seawater rose from the jar in a smooth, dark column. Soldiers stepped back. Caiyingsu lifted her marked arm. Wei Han drew his sword. Lin Yao remained still as the water hovered before her face. It should have reflected the courtyard. The soldiers. The snow. Her own eyes. It reflected fire. The imperial furnace. Lin Yao's breath stopped. Inside the floating water, she saw herself falling. Not as a memory. Not as the Heavenly Bell had shown it, wrapped in judgment and truth. This was different. The image felt intimate. Cruel. like someone had reached into the deepest, locked room of her soul and opened the window for strangers. The girl in the reflection burned, then opened her eyes. The reflected Lin Yao looked up from inside the furnace. Her lips moved, and Lin Yao heard her own voice come from the water. "You survived the wrong life." The courtyard went silent. Wei Han stepped closer. "Lin Yao." The water did not let her look away. The reflected girl smiled through flames. "The life where mother lived is still waiting." Lin Yao's heart struck her ribs once, hard. The image changed. Consort Ming stood in a sunlit courtyard, black hair unmarked by sacrifice. A younger Lin Yao ran toward her, laughing. No furnace, no demon, no cold palace, no white streak in her hair, no guardian mark beneath her sleeve. Only a mother holding out both arms. For one terrible moment, Lin Yao wanted it so badly she nearly stepped forward. The heavenly bell mark burned. Pain snapped through her wrist. The image shattered. The seawater collapsed back into the jar. The rider on the ground exhaled once and went limp. Captain Luo cursed and pressed 2 fingers to his neck. "Alive," he said, "but unconscious." Kaiyingsu stared at the jar. That was not a message. Lin Yao's voice came out steady only because she forced it to. "No." Wei Han sheathed his sword slowly. "Then what was it?" Lin Yao looked at the dark water sitting motionless inside the glass. The surface now reflected her face. But for half a breath, the reflection's eyes did not match hers. They looked older. And much sadder. "An invitation," Lin Yao said. Far beneath the eastern sea, something opened its silver eye wider. Chapter 2, The Eastern Governor's Smile. The road east did not look cursed at first. That was what troubled Lin Yao most. After Stormbreak, she had expected signs. Black tides climbing the cliffs, dead fish glittering on the roadside, villages with doors nailed shut and bells hung upside down. Instead, the eastern coast received them with pale sunlight, salt wind, and fields of spring millet bending in orderly waves. The nearer they came to Heijing City, the quieter the people became. Farmers bowed when they saw the imperial escort. Fishermen lowered their eyes. Children stopped playing with shells and ran indoors before Lin Yao's horse could pass. None of them looked starving. None bore demon scars. Yet the silence around them felt practiced, as if the whole coast had been taught the same lesson and punished whenever anyone forgot it. Wei Han rode beside Lin Yao, with his hand near his sword. "No watchfires," he said. Lin Yao glanced toward the headlands. "You notice too." A city this close to troubled water should have signal towers lit day and night. Either they fear nothing, or they fear being seen. Behind them, Shen Kaiyingsu sat stiffly in her saddle. The western dragon seal had left a faint gold mark beneath her collarbone, invisible under cloth but never truly hidden. Since morning, the mark had burned whenever the road turned toward the sea. "The water is watching," Kaiyingsu said. No one laughed. Heijing City rose from the mist by late afternoon. White walls curved along the harbor like the rim of a porcelain bowl. Blue roofs shone with salt glaze. Ships rested in the docks, their sails furled with mathematical neatness. It should have looked prosperous. It did, if one ignored the empty mirror frames hanging above every inn door. Lin Yao slowed her horse. Every public house had a frame. Every frame was empty. Not broken, not stolen, removed. At the western gate, a delegation waited under silk banners embroidered with waves. At their center stood Lord Hai Ren, governor of the eastern coast. He was younger than Lin Yao expected, perhaps 35, with smooth black hair bound by a jade pin and robes so clean the sea wind seemed reluctant to touch them. His smile was perfect. Not warm, not cold, but measured to the exact degree that made refusal feel impolite. "Guardian Princess," Hai Ren said, bowing deeply. "General Wei, witness Shen, the eastern coast is honored beyond measure." Lin Yao dismounted. "You know why we are here?" "Because rumors travel faster than ships." His eyes moved briefly to the sealed bronze case carried by one of Lin Yao's guards. Inside it, wrapped in talisman cloth, was the jar of dark seawater that had reflected her first death. "And because certain objects should never be sent by ordinary courier, I apologize for that. The magistrate who dispatched the jar has been dismissed. Dismissed. For panic, Hai Ren's smile did not move. Panic is contagious in coastal districts. Wei Han's voice was flat, so is drowning. The governor turned to him gracefully. Then you understand why order matters. Lin Yao watched the exchange and felt the heavenly bell mark stir beneath her skin. It did not ring. Not yet. Hai Ren had spoken no obvious lie. That made her dislike him more. They entered Heijing through streets washed clean of dust. Merchants folded their awnings as the escort passed. Women pulled curtains over upper windows. In a tea house, Lin Yao saw a serving girl turn a polished kettle toward the wall before Kaiengsu could glance at it. No mirrors, Lin Yao said. Hai Ren walked beside her horse, a local custom. The bell mark warmed. Lin Yao looked down at him. Customs are usually older than fear. For the first time, the governor's smile thinned. Then perhaps you should call it a law. He brought them to the Tide Governor's residence, a long estate built on terraces above the harbor. From the highest courtyard, Lin Yao could see the eastern sea stretching beyond the city. The water was calm, silver, and strangely flat. No waves struck the breakwater. No gulls crossed the sky. Inside, servants prepared chambers, tea, hot water, and a formal dinner with exhausting efficiency. Every polished plate had been dulled with ash. Every brass lamp had been rubbed matte. Even the windows were covered with gauze. Kaiengsu stopped outside the guest hall. Her face had gone bloodless. Lin Yao followed her gaze to a lacquered screen at the end of the corridor. Its surface had been darkened, but not enough. In that imperfect shine stood Kaiengsu's reflection. Only the reflection was not standing. It knelt in snow. Iron chains bound its wrists. Frost clung to its hair. Blood marked its lips. Behind it rose the prison gorge where Kaiengsu had once been left to die before the dragon seal chose her. Kaiengsu made a sound too small to be a word. Wei Han stepped between her and the screen, but the reflection leaned sideways to keep looking at her. Witness Shen, Hai Ren asked. Lin Yao drew one finger across the air. The heavenly bell sounded once, soft and low. The lacquered screen cracked from top to bottom. The reflection vanished. Servants dropped to their knees. Hai Ren did not. His smile had disappeared at last, revealing a man much more tired underneath. How long has this been happening? Lin Yao asked. The governor looked toward the gauzed windows, where the sea waited without moving. Long enough, he said, that we learn not to look. That night, Lin Yao placed the jar of seawater on her chamber table. She covered every lamp except one and watched the dark water settle. For a while, it reflected nothing. Then a woman's face appeared in the glass. Not Lin Yao's, not Kaiengsu's. A young woman with a drowned crown tangled in her hair stared out from inside the jar and pressed one pale finger to her lips. Behind her, from somewhere deep beneath the eastern sea, a city bell began to toll underwater. Chapter 3, Princess Lion of the Lost Tide. The drowned woman in the jar did not speak again. By morning, the seawater had turned clear as ordinary rain. Lord Hai Ren sent physicians, priests, 3 trays of breakfast, and no explanations. Lin Yao accepted the tea, dismissed the priests, and asked the physicians whether the city had always banned mirrors. 2 lied. 1 began to cry. That was the one Lin Yao kept. Her name was Dr. N, a narrow-faced woman with ink stains on her sleeves and the exhausted eyes of someone who had signed too many death certificates. She waited until the servants left before answering. The law began 8 years ago, Dr. N said. Before that, mirrors were only discouraged. Why? Because people saw the drowned kingdom in them. Wei Han stood by the door. A kingdom cannot appear in every mirror. It can if the kingdom is not entirely gone. Dr. N folded her shaking hands. 100 years ago, the old eastern capital stood where the bay is now. Lintide. The records say an earthquake sank it. The governor's office says the dead were honored, the survivors resettled, and the matter closed. Kaiengsu looked toward the gauzed window, and the people. They say the city still holds court beneath the water. Hai Ren arrived before Lin Yao could ask more. He had exchanged his formal robes for travel blue and carried an expression of patient courtesy, as if everyone in the room had agreed not to mention the cracked screen from the night before. "Guardian Princess," he said, "a petitioner has demanded an audience with you." People demand audiences with governors, not guests. This petitioner is unusual. Lin Yao rose. "Good, I prefer unusual people. They waste less time pretending to be furniture." The petitioner waited in the lower courtyard beneath a rain tree. She wore a gray cloak patched at the hem, but the way she stood ruined the disguise. Poverty bent people inward. This woman stood as if the world had once bent around her. She was about Lin Yao's age, with sea-dark hair braided over one shoulder and a narrow face too proud to be pretty in any gentle way. Around her throat hung a pendant made from cloudy glass. Hai Ren's jaw tightened. "Lion." The woman smiled without looking at him. "Governor, you are forbidden from entering Heijing. Then your guards should be better at stopping princesses." The courtyard changed around that word. Servants froze. Guards looked away. Doctrine inhaled sharply. Lin Yao descended the steps. "Princess of what?" "Of Lintide," the woman said. "Of the drowned throne. Of a kingdom your governor has spent his career pretending was only mud and bad weather." Hai Ren said, "She is the descendant of a minor branch family with a talent for performance." The Heavenly Bell mark warmed then cooled. Not entirely false, not entirely true. Lin Yao studied the woman. "And you can lead me to the sea mirror." Lion's eyes flickered. "So the jar reached you?" "Answer." "Yes, I can lead you to it." Lion touched the cloudy pendant. "My blood remembers the tide road." Wei Han stepped closer. "What do you want?" "My kingdom released." Hai Ren laughed once. It was not a pleasant sound. "Your kingdom is dead." Lion turned to him then, and for a heartbeat her composure cracked. "Then why are you still afraid of it?" No one answered. Lin Yao invited Lion into the guest hall. Hai Ren objected with enough politeness to make every word sharp. Lin Yao ignored him. Kaiengsu watched Lion with narrowed eyes, her dragon seal stirring like a sleeping blade. The hall had no mirrors, but rain had begun outside. Water gathered on the black stone floor where Lion's cloak dripped. In that shallow puddle, Lin Yao saw Lion's reflection. It did not match her. The real Lion sat with both hands wrapped around a teacup. Her reflection stood in the puddle with a crown on its head and grief carved into its face like age. It looked older, colder, more royal. Its eyes lifted to Lin Yao while the real Lion continued speaking. "There is a low tide tonight," Lion said. "Not a natural one. The sea mirror pulls water away when it wants witnesses. If we enter the bay before moonrise, the first road will appear." The reflection shook its head. Lin Yao kept her face still. "How many roads are there?" she asked. "3," Lion said. "The first leads to the market, the second to the palace gate, the third opens only to blood." The reflection mouthed a silent word. "Liar." Lin Yao set down her cup. "Leave us," she said. Hai Ren began, "Guardian Princess." The heavenly bell rang once. Everyone left. Only Lin Yao, Wei Han, Kaiengsu, and Lion remained in the hall. Rain tapped the roof in soft, uneven beats. Lin Yao looked directly at the puddle. "You can stop pretending I do not see you." Lion went rigid. Her reflection smiled. It lifted one translucent hand and wrote across the surface of the puddle with a fingertip made of moonlight. "Do not trust the living one." The real Lion stood so quickly the teacup shattered. "Do not listen to it," she whispered. The reflection looked at Lin Yao and wrote again. "She is not the princess." Outside, the harbor bell began to ring, though no hand pulled its rope. Chapter 4: The City That Forgets at Dawn. At dawn, Heijing City forgot the bell. Lin Yao woke before sunrise, with the sound still moving through her bones. She remembered the harbor bell ringing by itself. She remembered servants screaming in distant corridors. She remembered Lord Hai Ren ordering every window shuttered while the tide pulled away from the docks as if the moon had become a hand. Then the sun crossed the horizon. The city exhaled. And everyone behaved as if nothing had happened. In the courtyard below, servants swept broken porcelain from the guest hall without looking confused by it. Guards discussed fishing taxes. A cook laughed about oversalted soup. When Lin Yao asked why the harbor bell had rung all night, The nearest maid blinked and said the bell had not rung in years. Wei Han remembered. Kaiangsu remembered. Princess Lion remembered, though her hands shook when she thought no one watched. Lord Hai Ren did not. Or pretended not to. Lin Yao found him in his administrative hall, signing relief permits with elegant brushstrokes. "You sealed the city last night," she said. Hai Ren looked up mildly. "Did I?" The tide withdrew, the harbor bell rang, Lion's reflection spoke. Princess Lion says many things. The Heavenly Bell mark remained silent. That was worse than a lie. Lin Yao leaned over his desk. "You truly do not remember." For the first time, fear touched his face before discipline buried it. "What time is it?" "Morning." He closed his eyes. Kaiangsu, standing behind Lin Yao, whispered, "It resets at dawn." Hai Ren opened a drawer and removed a sealed letter addressed in his own handwriting. He broke the wax with a thumb that trembled once. Lin Yao read over his shoulder. "If the guardian princess asks about the bell, believe her. If Lion appears, detain her only if the reflection is absent. If the tide road opens, do not let anyone enter before the third night. If I deny knowledge, I have forgotten again." Wei Han's expression hardened. "You write orders to yourself." "I write warnings," Hai Ren said quietly. "With what?" He did not answer. Lin Yao looked toward the shelves behind his desk. Ledgers, coastal maps, tax seals, a porcelain bowl covered with a black cloth. She lifted the cloth. The bowl was full of water. Not clear water, mirror water, silver as melted moonlight, still as glass. Hai Ren reached for it, Wei Han caught his wrist. "Careful," the governor said. "Spill that, and half the servants may remember enough to jump from the walls." Lin Yao stared into the bowl. Her own face looked back. For once, it was only her face. "You use this to erase memory." "To contain panic." The bell mark heated. Hai Ren flinched as if he felt it too. "To contain panic," he repeated, forcing each word to hold. "Not to hide crimes, not at first." Dr. An entered with a stack of medical registers and a face full of dread. "Guardian Princess, you asked for death records." She opened the first book. The entries changed by year. At first, after storms, deaths were listed plainly. Drowning, fever, missing at sea. Then the handwriting became tidier, the causes gentler. Sudden sleep, coastal weakness, family relocation. By the most recent pages, whole households had disappeared into phrases like administrative transfer. "How many have been erased?" Lin Yao asked. Hai Ren said nothing. Dr. An answered, "Enough that we stopped counting people and counted empty rooms." At midday, Lin Yao walked through the city with no escort except Wei Han. She watched a mother call 3 children to lunch while setting 4 bowls on the table. She watched an old man polish an empty mirror frame and weep without knowing why. She watched fishermen mend nets for boats that had sunk months before. The city was not peaceful. It was drugged. At the market, Wei Han stopped beside a stall selling paper charms. His eyes passed over Lin Yao without recognition. "General," she said. He turned, hand on sword. "Who are you?" The question struck harder than any blade. Lin Yao did not move. Wei Han looked around the market as if he had woken in enemy territory. His gaze sharpened on the imperial guards at the far street, on the rooftops, on escape routes. It did not soften when it returned to her. "Identify yourself," he ordered. Kaiangsu arrived breathless, dragon seal blazing beneath her collar. "It is in the rainwater. Lin Yao, do not touch anything reflective." Lin Yao kept her voice calm. "Wei Han, you know me." "I know my soldiers, I know my oath, I do not know you." For 1 hour, the city took him from her. He followed only because Kaiangsu commanded it in the name of the dragon seal. He stood across the room from Lin Yao with a stranger's caution, while Hai Ren prepared an antidote made from salt, ash, and bitter herbs. When memory returned, it did so violently. Wei Han gripped the table until the wood cracked. He looked at Lin Yao with horror, then lowered his head. "Forgive me." "There is nothing to forgive." "I pointed a blade at you. You did not draw it." "I wanted to." Lin Yao reached across the broken table and placed her hand over his. "Then remember that, not as guilt, as evidence." His eyes lifted. "This city is not losing memory," she said. "Someone is choosing what survives." That evening, Princess Lion returned from hiding with seawater soaking the hem of her cloak. Her reflection did not appear in the puddles behind her. "The first road is open," she said, "and if we wait until dawn, the city will forget it ever existed." From the harbor came a sound like stone gates grinding beneath the tide. Chapter 5: The First Descent. The sea withdrew under a moon with no halo. At sunset, Heijing's harbor had been full. Ships creaked at their moorings. Lanterns trembled on black water. By moonrise, the water had pulled away from the docks so far that boats hung crooked in mud, and the bay floor shone under the stars like exposed glass. No fish thrashed there. No crabs fled. The seabed waited. Princess Lion led them down the harbor steps with a lantern in one hand and her cloudy pendant in the other. Lord Hai Ren insisted on coming. Doctrine came because Lin Yao asked for someone who understood the mirror water. Wei Han brought 12 soldiers and chose each one himself, men and women with steady hands and no habit of boasting. Kaiangsu walked nearest the waterline. The dragon seal glowed faintly through her cloak. "It hates this place," she said. "The seal?" Lin Yao asked. "No," Kaiangsu looked toward the wet darkness ahead, the thing beneath it. The first road appeared when Lion cut her palm and let 3 drops of blood fall onto the glass-like mud. Silver lines spread from the blood, drawing stones where no stones had been. A street surfaced out of reflection, descending into the empty bay. On either side of it, water stood in vertical walls, held back by nothing Lin Yao could see. Lantern light entered those walls and did not return. Hai Ren whispered, "Impossible." Lion glanced at him. "Your office has used impossible water for 8 years. Using a poison does not mean understanding its source." At last, an honest sentence. The Heavenly Bell mark stayed cool. Lin Yao stepped onto the road first. The stone was dry. Behind her, Wei Han cursed softly. "Of course it is." They descended. Heijing vanished above them after the 9th turn of the road. The air grew colder, heavier, threaded with the smell of salt and extinguished incense. Shapes appeared beyond the water walls. Rooflines, watchtowers, the curved backs of bridges. A city lay beneath the sea, intact and waiting with all its windows dark. Lin sighed. No ruin could have looked so alive. They passed through an arched gate carved with waves and lotus crowns. Beyond it stretched a market street paved in blue stone. Stalls stood open. Silk awnings drifted in water that was not touching them. Bronze coins lay stacked beside scales. Clay bowls brimmed with fruit that had not rotted in 100 years. One of Wei Han's soldiers reached toward a pair. "Do not," Lin Yao said. The soldier froze. In the water wall beside the stall, faces gathered. Men, women, children, pale, blurred, curious. They watched the living with the solemn interest of guests arriving late to a banquet. Doctor and began to pray under her breath. "They are not trapped in the water," Kaiangsu said. "The water is trapped around them." Lion's pendant flickered. "The palace is ahead." Lin Yao looked at her. "You have walked this road before." "In dreams." The bell mark warmed. Lion's mouth tightened. "In dreams and once as a child." They continued through the market. At every corner, more faces appeared. Some smiled. Some wept silently. Some opened their mouths, releasing streams of bubbles that formed words against the water wall. "Welcome home." The phrase repeated again and again. "Welcome home, welcome home, welcome home." Wei Han moved closer to Lin Yao. "They are looking at you." She had noticed. The drowned faces did not watch Lion, their supposed princess. They watched Lin Yao with recognition so intense it felt like accusation. At the end of the market stood a square. In its center rose a statue of a queen holding a mirror before her face. The mirror had been broken from the stone. Only the queen's hands remained, curved around absence. Lion stopped. Her reflection appeared in the wet stone at her feet. This time it wore morning white. "Not here," the real lion whispered. The reflection looked at Lin Yao and pointed toward the palace road. Then the city woke. Lanterns bloomed one by one in every drowned window. Music drifted through the streets, thin and elegant. The market stalls filled with people made of water and memory. Merchants bowed. Children laughed. A procession of officials emerged from a side street carrying trays of pearls. At their head walked an old minister, with coral growing through his ribs. He bowed to Lin Yao until his forehead touched the stone. "Your Majesty," he said, "the court has waited 100 years for your return." Every drowned citizen in the square knelt. Lion made a strangled sound. Hai Ren stepped back, as if he could climb all the way to the surface by will alone. Lin Yao felt the heavenly bell tremble, not in warning but in grief. The old minister lifted his dead face. "The final banquet is prepared," he said. "Please do not keep yourself waiting again." Chapter 6: The Court Beneath the Waves. The final banquet waited in a palace that should have collapsed a century ago. Lintide's royal hall rose from the drowned city on pillars shaped like coiling tides. Blue fire burned in pearl lamps. Silk banners drifted in air as if moved by currents no living person could feel. At the center of the hall, a long table had been set with jade plates, silver chopsticks, and cups filled with wine so dark it reflected stars. The dead filled every seat. They wore court robes from an older dynasty. Their skin held the faint translucence of deep water. Coral grew through sleeves, pearls nested in hair. Some had seaweed wrapped around their throats like ceremonial scarves. All of them turned as Lin Yao entered. All of them smiled. "Your Majesty," they said together. The sound made Dr. An stumble. Wei Han caught her before she fell. His other hand never left his sword. Lin Yao looked to Lion. "Explain." The princess was shaking. "They never called me that." Her reflection stretched across the polished floor, wearing a crown the real lion did not possess. It looked at the banquet table with an expression close to homesickness. Lord Hai Ren whispered, "This is a memory." The old minister who had greeted them in the square turned his drowned eyes toward him. "All courts are memories, Governor. Some merely pretend to be governments." Hai Ren went still. The minister smiled wider. "Be seated. The tide has already closed behind you." At the far end of the hall, the doors shut without a hand touching them. Lin Yao heard waterpress against the palace walls. The dead court rose, 100 sleeves whispered, 100 faces lowered in one flawless bow. "Tonight," the minister announced, "Her Majesty returns from illness. Tonight, the sea mirror will be presented. Tonight, no one will mention the storm." The heavenly bell mark burned. Lin Yao understood then. This was not only a haunting, it was a ceremony. A repeated hour from the night Lintide sank, polished by denial until it became a prison. "What happens if someone mentions the storm?" Kaiengsu asked. No one answered. A young drowned musician raised a flute to his lips. Music began, sweet enough to hurt. Servants approached with wine. One offered a cup to Lin Yao. She did not take it. The servant's smile twitched. Around the hall, the dead court watched. Wei Han leaned close. "We can fight our way out." "Can you cut a memory?" "I can start with the minister and learn." Despite everything, Lin Yao almost smiled. She took the cup but did not drink. The ceremony resumed. The dead toasted the queen's health. They praised the calm weather. They congratulated one another on wise alliances, generous harvests, obedient tides. Every sentence avoided the truth so carefully that the silence between words became louder than speech. Then a bell rang from somewhere beneath the floor. The dead flinched. Only the old minister kept smiling. "The sea mirror approaches," he said. The doors behind the throne opened. 2 attendants carried in an empty frame made of black coral. No glass sat inside it. No metal. No polished surface. Yet when the frame passed the lamps, reflections moved inside the emptiness. Lin Yao saw herself on Stormbreak's wall. She saw the furnace where her first life ended. She saw Yue Kaiyan, alive, standing in a corridor beyond the frame. Her breath stopped. Yue Kaiyan looked exactly as he had before betrayal hardened him into memory. His robes were simple. His hair was tied back carelessly. His eyes held the tired amusement of the boy who had once shared forbidden palace suites with her behind the archives. "Lin Yao," he said. Wei Han's voice cut through the music. "That is not him." Lin Yao knew that. Her body did not. The empty frame moved past the throne and into a side corridor lined with black glass. Yue Kaiyan remained visible in one panel after another, walking away slowly, looking back as if expecting her to follow. The old minister watched her with satisfaction. Her Majesty should inspect the mirror before presentation. Kaiangsu grabbed Lin Yao's sleeve. Do not go alone. Lin Yao looked at Yue Kaiyan's reflection. He lifted one hand and touched the glass from the other side. You never asked why I hated you enough to do it, he said. The heavenly bell did not ring. Not because it was true. Because the sea mirror had not lied. It had only offered the question she had buried. Lin Yao followed. Wei Han moved with her. Kaiangsu too. Lion hesitated, then came after them, while Hai Ren and Doctorin remained under guard at the banquet. The mirror corridor narrowed with every step. Glass panels covered both walls, each one reflecting a different version of the hall. In some, the dead court danced. In some, the guests drowned at the table. In one, Lin Yao wore the drowned crown and smiled while water poured from her mouth. At the corridor's end, Yue Kaiyan waited behind a pane of silver glass. You want the truth? He asked. Lin Yao raised her hand toward the heavenly bell mark. Yue Kaiyan smiled sadly. No, he said, you want the truth to make the pain useful. The glass cracked. Behind them, from the banquet hall, someone screamed the forbidden word. Storm. The music stopped. Water burst through the walls. Chapter 7, The Reflection Trial. The palace began to drown again. Water poured through windows that had been dry for 100 years. It rushed beneath doors, climbed pillars, swallowed carpets, and filled the banquet hall with the roar of an ocean remembering its work. The dead courtiers did not run. They turned in their seats with expressions of offended surprise, as if the sea had interrupted etiquette. Lin Yao slammed the heavenly bell's power into the floor. Sound rippled outward. For one breath, the water held still. Move, Wei Han shouted. The living fled into the mirror corridor. Soldiers dragged Doctor in. Kaiangsu pulled Lord Hai Ren by the collar when he froze. Princess Lion stumbled behind them, her real body sobbing while her reflection glided across every glass panel with terrible calm. At the end of the corridor, the silver pane where Yue Kaiyan had stood split open like a door. Beyond it was not another room. It was sunlight. Lin Yao stepped through and found herself in the imperial garden of her childhood. No water, no dead court, no salt on her lips. Peonies bloomed beside a stone path. Cicadas sang from willow branches. Somewhere nearby, a young maid laughed. The air smelled of summer ink and steamed buns. Lin Yao knew the place instantly. She also knew it had burned years ago. Yayar. Her mother stood beneath the willow. Not as a corpse, not as a painted ancestor tablet. Alive, warm-eyed, wearing the pale green robe Lin Yao remembered from the last festival before everything began to rot. Lin Yao could not move. The heavenly bell mark went silent. Her mother smiled. You have been working too hard. Lin Yao's throat closed. Behind her, the others had vanished. The sea mirror had separated them. A table waited beneath the willow with 2 bowls of sweet soup. Her mother's hand rested on one chair. Sit, she said, tell me everything. Lin Yao wanted to. The desire was so simple it humiliated her. No throne, no artifact, no war map, no demon gate. Only a chair, a bowl, and someone who would listen without needing her to be brave. She sat. Her mother brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. You have scars, she said. Yes. Who allowed that? Lin Yao laughed once, and it broke into something too close to a sob. No one allowed it. It happened anyway. Then stay here. The garden wind cooled. The cicadas quieted. Lin Yao looked up. Her mother's face remained gentle. Stay, she repeated. You have carried enough. Let the others continue. Let someone else be necessary. Elsewhere, a dragon roared. Kaiangsu. The garden flickered. For a heartbeat, Lin Yao saw Kaiangsu in a snow gorge without chains. She wore a scholar's robe and sat beside a warm stove, reading military histories while a grandmotherly woman scolded her for skipping meals. In that life, no prison lord had broken her. No dragon seal had demanded courage from a child left to freeze. Kaiangsu reached toward the stove. Then she looked at her own unscarred hands and began to cry. The vision shifted again. Wei Han stood in a mountain village, not a battlefield. His armor was gone. A little girl clung to his sleeve, calling him uncle. Old soldiers sat around him with bowls of wine, all alive, all laughing. No border oath had been betrayed. No comrades had died under false orders. No princess had needed rescuing from a furnace because no furnace had existed. Wei Han closed his eyes. The sea mirror offered each of them the same mercy. A life where the wound had never happened. Lin Yao looked at her mother. This is cruel. Is rest cruel? Rest is given, this is bait. Her mother's smile trembled. Does that make me less real? That question hurt most. Lin Yao reached across the table and took her mother's hand. It was warm. The pulse beneath the skin beat steadily. No, Lin Yao whispered. It makes me want you more. The garden darkened at the edges. Her mother squeezed her hand. Then stay. The heavenly bell mark gave one faint chime, weak as a bell heard through snow. Not warning. Reminder. Truth did not always arrive like a blade. Sometimes it arrived as a hand on the shoulder, asking whether comfort had become a cage. Lin Yao stood. Her mother rose too, fear entering her eyes. Yayar. I love you, Lin Yao said. Then do not leave me again. Lin Yao pressed her forehead to her mother's hand one last time. I am not leaving you. I am leaving the lie that says losing you means I must stop living. The garden split open. Sunlight became silver water. Lin Yao fell back into the mirror corridor, gasping on the flooded floor. Wei Han crashed through another pane at the same moment, sword drawn, face wet with grief. Kaiangsu followed with golden fire around her hands, teeth clenched hard enough to bleed. Princess Lion was already there. She stood before her reflection, and both of them were laughing. Only one laugh sounded human. Chapter 8: The Comfortable Lie. Princess Lion held the shard like a stolen moon. It had not been there before. The mirror corridor's silver pane lay broken at her feet, and in her palm rested a triangular piece of glass that reflected no one except her. The real lion's eyes shone with fever. Her reflection, stretched across the flooded floor, watched with the calm of someone seeing a plan unfold exactly as expected. Put it down, Lin Yao said. Lion clutched the shard to her chest. You do not understand. Then explain while your hand is empty. Water rose around their ankles. The palace groaned. Beyond the corridor, the drowned court had resumed screaming and singing at the same time, trapped between ceremony and disaster. Wei Han advanced one step. The reflection lifted its hand. Every mirror in the corridor flashed. Wei Han stopped because the glass showed a dozen arrows already buried in his throat. Kaiangsu raised the dragon seal's power, but her reflection raised it faster. Doctor and sobbed somewhere behind them, repeating the names of patients she had forgotten. Lion looked at Lin Yao. If I return the shard, the palace keeps me. If I keep it, I can force the sea mirror to open. You said you wanted your kingdom released. I do. The heavenly bell rang. Lion flinched. Lin Yao's voice hardened. No, you want it returned. The shard brightened. The corridor changed. For one terrible breath, Lin Yao stood not in Lintide but in the life the mirror had offered her. The imperial garden, her mother, the chair under the willow. This time Wei Han was there too, unarmored and smiling. Kaiangsu argued with a cook nearby. Even Yue Kaian sat on the wall, young and harmless, tossing stolen plums into the air. A complete life. A healed life. The kind of life grief invents when no one is listening. Lin Yao's knees weakened. Her mother looked up from the table. You came back. The shard in Lion's hand pulsed. Lion whispered, the mirror can make it real. It can restore what the sea took. My palace, my family, my throne, your mother, your old life, everything. Lin Yao knew it was impossible. She also knew every broken part of herself wanted to believe it. The heavenly bell mark burned against her palm, not with command, but with pain. It had never promised comfort. It had never promised restoration. It had only shown lies until she could no longer live inside them. Peace built on denial is another prison, Lin Yao said. The garden flickered. Her mother's face changed, not monstrous, worse, sad. Must you always choose pain? The illusion asked. Lin Yao stepped forward. No, I choose the world where love matters even after loss. She struck the shard with the Heavenly Bell's sound. Glass rang. The illusion shattered. Lion screamed. Her reflection did not. The shard flew from her hand, spinning end over end. Kaiengsu caught it with dragon seal fire wrapped around her fingers. Golden light crawled across the glass, and inside it Lin Yao saw not a restored kingdom, but thousands of drowned faces pressed together, begging to be remembered correctly. Lion collapsed to her knees. You had no right. Neither did the sea, Lin Yao said. Neither did whoever sank your kingdom. But lying about the grave does not raise the dead. Lord Hai Ren staggered into the corridor, one arm bleeding. The tide road is closing. How long? Less than an hour, perhaps less than a prayer. The palace shook hard enough to crack the ceiling. The old minister appeared at the far end of the corridor, walking calmly through waist-deep water. His court robes floated around him. Behind him came the dead officials, their faces twisted by awakening fury. The banquet is unfinished, he said. Lin Yao looked at him and heard the truth beneath his words. The denial was breaking. The dead were beginning to remember the storm, but not why it came. The minister lifted one drowned hand. Return the shard, false queen. Every mirror in the corridor turned toward Lin Yao. Her reflection in each one wore the drowned crown. Princess Lion's real body began to laugh again, softly now, hopelessly. You see, she whispered, it wants you too. From Kaiengsu's burning hand, the shard spoke in a voice like water over bones. Bring me to the governor, it said. He remembers the key. Chapter 9, Lord Hai Ren's Bargain. They escaped the palace by breaking the ceremony. Lin Yao did not fight the drowned court as enemies. She rang the heavenly bell again and again, each note carrying one forbidden word into the flooded halls. Storm. Sacrifice. Gate. Mirror. The dead recoiled from every sound. Some screamed, some covered their ears. Some began to weep seawater as memory cracked through the perfect banquet like roots through stone. Wei Han led the soldiers through the market road. Kaiengsu guarded the rear with the dragon seal burning bright enough to turn the water walls gold. Princess Lion walked between them like a condemned prisoner, staring at the shard in Kaiengsu's hand with naked hunger. Lord Hai Ren said nothing until they reached the exposed bay floor. Above them, Heijing's lanterns glowed through mist. The sea stood back in towering walls on either side, trembling. Give me the shard, Hai Ren said. Wei Han laughed without humor. You choose a strange time to become bold. Hai Ren looked at Lin Yao. It asked for me. And you know why. The governor's polished face finally broke. Beneath it was not villainy, but exhaustion sharpened into something dangerous. My grandfather found the first mirror water, he said. After a storm opened the old ruins, he brought it back in a clay jar. At first it showed lost relatives, then it showed memories, then it removed them. Doctrine whispered, your family knew. My family governed a coast that lost thousands in one night and spent the next century trying not to lose the rest to madness. Hai Ren's voice rose. Do you think grief behaves nobly when a drowned child appears in every wash basin? Do you think fishermen sail calmly when their dead wives beg from the hulls? Lin Yao said, so you erased them. We gave people mornings they could survive. The heavenly bell rang. Hai Ren closed his eyes. We gave people mornings we could govern. There it was. Not the whole truth, but a truer one. Kaiengsu held up the shard. It says you remember the key. Hai Ren opened his hand. On his palm lay a scar shaped like a small circle. Not remember, inherit. He pressed his scar to the shard. Silver light burst outward. The bay vanished. Lin Yao saw Heijing as it might become. Streets flooded under a green moon, children standing on roofs while mirror water climbed the walls. Lord Hai ran older, colder, pouring silver bowls into wells because panic had become rebellion. Princess Lion crowned in a palace of reflections while living citizens knelt without faces. Then another future. The drowned court freed too suddenly, the illusion gone, a wave of memory rolling into Heijing at dawn, mothers remembering dead children, husbands remembering erased wives, officials remembering orders signed in clean ink over dirty graves, the city tearing itself apart because truth arrived without mercy. Then a third future. Lin Yao holding the sea mirror. Her face reflected in it beside the Heavenly Bell and Dragon Seal. Behind her in the imperial capital, a chain coiled around a throne. The vision ended. Hai Ren staggered back, gray-faced. "Now you see," he said, "truth is not always medicine. Sometimes it is a blade handed to a child." Lin Yao hated that he was not entirely wrong. That was the sea mirror's cruelty. It did not tempt only with lies. It tempted with partial truths arranged to make surrender feel wise. "What bargain are you offering?" she asked. Hai Ren looked toward Heijing. "Let me keep the mirror water sealed. Let Lintide sleep. Take your artifact shard and leave the coast under my governance. I will reduce the erasures. I will regulate them. I will report to the throne." Wei Han's voice was ice. "You want permission to continue." "I want time to prevent collapse." "You had 8 years." Hai Ren turned on him, and in those 8 years, Heijing did not burn. Kaiyingsu stepped forward. "A prison that does not burn is still a prison." The shard flashed again. This time it reflected not the past, but possible futures flickering too quickly to count. Lin Yao saw herself choosing mercy and causing ruin, choosing truth and causing ruin, choosing delay and causing ruin later. Every road offered consequence. None offered innocence. Princess Lion smiled through tears. "Now you understand my kingdom." Lin Yao took the shard from Kaiyingsu. The glass was cold enough to numb her fingers. "No bargain," she said. Hai Ren's face closed. "Then what?" Lin Yao looked down at Lintide beneath the sea, at Heijing above it, at 2 cities tied together by an old crime and a newer fear. "A trial," she said. "Not yours, not Lion's, not mine, the sea mirror's." Far below, the drowned palace answered with a bell. This time, every person in Heijing heard it. Chapter 10, Cyan in the Glass. The bell brought the guardian. It began as a shape inside the shard, a woman standing at the bottom of an endless staircase, her hair floating around her face like black ink in water. Then every reflective surface in the bay turned toward her. Puddles, wet stones, sword blades, the silver walls of the waiting sea. She opened her eyes. The water bowed. Lord Hai Ren dropped to one knee before he seemed to realize he had moved. Princess Lion whispered, "Cyan." The woman stepped out of the shard. She was not fully alive. Lin Yao saw the stars through her sleeves, yet she was not dead like the drowned court either. Her gaze held the terrible steadiness of someone who had watched generations make the same mistake and had grown too tired to be surprised. "Guardian Princess Lin Yao," Cyan said, "bearer of the Heavenly Bell." Lin Yao inclined her head. "Mirror Guardian." "Witness Shen Kaiyingsu, chosen of the Western Dragon Seal." Kaiyingsu's hand tightened. "You know the seal." "I knew its first witness. She hated ceremony and once punched a king." Kaiyingsu blinked. Wei Han murmured, "I like her already." Cyan's eyes moved to him. "General Wei Han, oath-bound without artifact. Such people are either anchors or disasters." "I try to be useful." "Most disasters do." No one smiled for long. Cyan turned to the city above. Dawn was hours away, but Heijing had woken. People lined the harbor walls with lanterns in their hands, staring at the empty bay and the exposed road to a kingdom they were supposed to forget. "You broke the hush," Cyan said. "It was already breaking," Lin Yao replied. "Everything says that when it wants permission to shatter." The heavenly bell mark warmed, but did not ring. Lin Yao asked the question that mattered. Why was the sea mirror sealed? Cyan looked toward Lintide, because it told too much truth. Hai Ren gave a bitter laugh. "Truth does not sink cities." "No," Cyan said. "People do, after truth removes the stories that kept them obedient." The mirror guardian lifted one translucent hand, and the bay became memory. Lintide appeared as it had been 100 years ago. Bright bridges, crowded markets, a palace of blue tiles. At the center of the throne room stood the sea mirror, whole and immense, a circle of silver taller than 3 men. "The mirror was made to reveal self-deception," Cyan said. A ruler could stand before it and see the lie beneath his noble excuse. A minister could see greed beneath policy. A lover could see possession beneath devotion. Useful, at first. The memory changed. Courtiers screaming, nobles accusing one another, priests smashing their own tablets, a king staring into the mirror until his hair turned white. Then they asked it larger questions, Sion continued. Which treaty was a trap? Which prince would betray them? Which sacrifice would save the kingdom? The mirror answered, not gently, never gently. Lin Yao saw the final night. The court gathered in panic. The sea outside blackened. The king ordered the mirror chained. Ministers shouted. Soldiers dragged servants away. Sion, younger and alive, stood before the artifact with blood on her face. The sovereign chain had already touched Lintide, Sion said. The name changed the air. The heavenly bell rang once. The dragon seal flared. Wei Han looked at Lin Yao. That chain again. Sion nodded. Before the bell was hidden, before the dragon seal slept, before your empire pretended the artifacts were legends, the sovereign chain moved through courts. It did not conquer with armies. It made obedience feel like peace. Lin Yao's mouth went dry. Where is it now? Sion's reflection trembled across every surface. It has already chosen a living host. Hai Ren said, who? The guardian's gaze sharpened. The sea mirror does not reveal that answer from the outside. Princess Lion stepped forward, then let me inside. Her reflection appeared at her feet and shook its head violently. Sion looked between them. Something like sorrow passed across her face. Ah, she said, so the air is still divided. Lion went pale. What does that mean? It means the body survived what the soul refused, or the soul survived what the body could not. I have forgotten which version hurts less. The city above began to murmur. Thousands of people watched from the harbor. Some pointed at the road. Some wept. Some called names into the empty bay. Dawn would come. Memory would try to erase itself. Lin Yao faced Sion. How do we end this without destroying both cities? The mirror guardian looked at her for a long time. You enter the mirror's inner surface, she said. You let it judge what you still refuse to know. If you endure, it will choose a witness. If you fail, Haging forgets forever, Lintide repeats forever, and the sovereign chain keeps its host hidden until the capital kneels. Kaiyingsu said, that sounds like a threat pretending to be a ritual. Most ancient trials do. Lin Yao looked down at the shard in her hand. Inside it, her reflection looked back. It was crying. Chapter 11, The Drowned Kingdom Wakes. Dawn came like a verdict. The first light touched Haging's rooftops, and the city tried to forget. For a breath, thousands of faces on the harbor wall went blank. Mothers lowered lanterns. Fishermen blinked at the exposed bay as if waking from a dream. Guards looked at one another, embarrassed by tears they no longer understood. Then the heavenly bell rang from Lin Yao's palm. The sound crossed water, stone, memory, and fear. No one forgot. Haging screamed. Not all at once. That would have been easier. The truth returned unevenly, striking house by house, heart by heart. A woman remembered the daughter whose bowl she still set each morning. An old man remembered that his son had not moved inland but walked into the sea after seeing his dead wife in a mirror. A clerk remembered changing names in registers under Hai Ren's seal. A guard remembered holding down a neighbor while silver water was poured between his lips. The city became a wound, opening under sunlight. Lord Hai Ren stood on the Bay Road and listened to his governance collapse. Doctor In covered her mouth with both hands. I signed so many papers, she whispered. I thought they were transfers. Sion watched without comfort. Memory is a tide. When held back too long, it does not return gently. Below them, Lintide woke as well. The drowned court poured from the palace into the streets. Their ceremony had shattered. No musicians played. No ministers announced false weather. The dead touched market stalls, doorframes, children's toys, and remembered that they had died holding them. The old minister crawled from the palace gate, coral cracking across his ribs. Who ordered it? He demanded. His voice shook the water walls. Other dead took up the cry. Who ordered it? Who opened the sea? Who chained the mirror? The Bay Road trembled. Lin Yao turned to Sion. They do not know. They were not allowed to. And if they learned? Sion's eyes moved to Haging above. Then the dead may demand payment from the living. Kayangsu drew a slow breath. The living people in Haging did not sink Lintide. Hai Ren said hoarsely, but my family kept the lie. Wei Han looked at him, then stand where they can see you. The governor flinched. Lin Yao did not rescue him from the command. You wanted order, earn something better. Hai Ren walked down the Bay Road alone. The dead turned as he approached the square. Their faces twisted with recognition not of him, but of office, robes, seal, lineage, governor, administrator, keeper of records, descendant of those who had turned disaster into policy. The old minister rose. Kneel. Hai Ren knelt. Did you drown us? No. The Heavenly Bell stayed silent. Did you hide us? Hai Ren closed his eyes. Yes. The dead wailed. The water walls surged inward. Wei Han shouted, but Lin Yao lifted a hand. If they interfered too soon, the truth would become another suppression. Hai Ren bowed until his forehead touched the stone. I cannot return what was taken. I cannot make forgetting mercy. I can only confess that I called control compassion because I was afraid of grief. The heavenly bell rang once, clear and cold. Truth. The dead did not forgive him. Lin Yao had not expected them to. But they listened. That was enough for one breath. Then Lintide shook from its foundations. The palace roof split. Towers folded inward as if the sea had finally remembered weight. The market street cracked, revealing black water beneath the glass-like road. Sion's face changed. The illusion is failing too quickly. Kayangsu gripped the dragon seal. Can we hold it? You can hold a gate, not a kingdom's refusal to die. Princess Lion ran toward the statue of the Mirror Queen. Her reflection ran ahead of her, faster and brighter, feet never touching the stone. Lion, Lin Yao called. The real princess did not stop. If the city collapses before the mirror chooses, Sion said, the dead will be released as hunger, not memory. Wei Han's expression hardened. Meaning Haging drowns next. Lin Yao looked from the collapsing palace to the city above, where living people screamed under the return of grief. 2 cities, 2 disasters, 1 truth arriving too late. The sea mirror's shard pulsed in her hand. Inside it, her own reflection mouthed a question. Which city will you save? Lin Yao hated the question. So she refused it. Both, she said. The shard cracked open like an eye. Chapter 12, The Mirror Without Mercy. The sea mirror opened beneath the statue. Not as an object. As a surface. Silver spread across the square, swallowing stone, water, shadow, and reflection until the whole heart of Lintide became one vast mirror. The dead stood upon it. The living stood upon it. Above them, Haging appeared upside down in the silver, its harbor wall crowded with terrified faces. Sion stepped back. It will show the sinking. Lord Hai Ren lifted his head. Princess Lion stopped at the statue, breathing hard. Her reflection stood on the mirror surface before her, crowned and silent. The world turned white. Lin Yao saw Lintide 100 years ago. The final night was not storm-torn at first. It was orderly, too orderly. Soldiers blocked palace exits. Servants carried sealed boxes through hidden corridors. Ministers argued in whispers while musicians played loudly enough to cover fear. At the center of the throne room stood the sea mirror, whole and blazing. The king of Lintide faced it with a chain wrapped around his wrist. Lin Yao felt the heavenly bell recoil. The chain was black metal, thin as a bracelet, marked with runes that seemed to tighten when looked at. It did not glow. It did not need to. Power moved through it like a command everyone had already agreed to obey. The sovereign chain. The king spoke to the mirror. Show me the price of survival. The mirror showed rebellion, nobles exposing corruption, priests confessing false miracles, generals refusing imperial tribute, the kingdom fracturing under truths it had buried for generations. Then the chain tightened. The king's face emptied. Show me obedience, he said. The mirror darkened. Sion, alive and bleeding from one temple, stepped forward. Your Majesty, do not ask that. The king did not hear her, or the chain made hearing irrelevant. The mirror showed a bargain. Sink the old capital, bind the dead in ceremony, preserve the coast above under governors who would control memory through mirror water. A kingdom sacrificed to create a quieter province. A catastrophe renamed natural disaster. A wound sealed under law. The ministers wept. Then they signed. Lin Yao saw the order pass from hand to hand. Open the tide gates. Chain the mirror. Silence the city. The sea did not take Lintide. Lintide was handed to the sea. The vision shifted to the palace nursery. A baby lay in a cradle beside a young woman wearing the royal tide pendant. Soldiers burst in. The woman lifted the child, but a mirror on the wall flashed. Silver light split the room. When it faded, there were two children. One flesh crying in the woman's arms. One reflection trapped in the mirror, eyes open and terribly calm. Princess Lion made a broken sound. Her reflection turned toward her. Cyan's voice was soft. The air divided when the mirror was chained, body above, soul below, neither complete, both surviving. The real lion shook her head. No. The reflection touched its own chest. The sea mirror gave no mercy. It showed the body smuggled from the palace through servant tunnels, raised by exiles, taught that blood alone meant kingdom. It showed the reflection remaining under the sea, watching the drowned court repeat the banquet, remembering every name the living forgot. I am real, Lion whispered. Her reflection nodded, then wrote in silver beneath their feet. So am I. The vision ended. The square returned, but nothing was unchanged. The dead of Lintide stared at their old ministers. Haging citizens stared at Lord Hai Ren. Princess Lion stared at herself and found no enemy simple enough to hate. The old minister began to sob. We signed, he said. We signed because the king commanded, and the chain made command feel like duty. Lin Yao turned to Cyan. Can the chain still command through old orders? Through fear, through institutions, through people who inherit obedience and call it tradition. Wei Han looked up toward Haging. Then this was never only about a dead city. No, Lin Yao said, it was practice. The sea mirror's surface brightened beneath her feet. Her reflection rose from it, not crowned, not dead, but exactly herself. Now you, it said. The mirror showed no palace, no city, no ancient king. It showed Lin Yao standing alone while everyone she loved became symbols around her. Bell bearer, guardian princess, necessary blade, useful truth. It showed her accepting every burden because refusal felt like betrayal. Her reflection looked at her with unbearable tenderness. What lie keeps you obedient? The square fell silent. Lin Yao knew the tide trial had begun. Chapter 13, The Tide Trial. Lin Yao entered the mirror alone. One moment she stood in Lintide Square with the dead, the living, and the sea watching. The next, she stood on a plain of silver water beneath a sky with no horizon. Every step made ripples. Every ripple carried a memory. The sea mirror did not attack. It offered evidence. Lin Yao saw herself in her first life, smiling at people who had already decided she was useful and disposable. She saw the furnace, the betrayal, the moment death became less frightening than realizing how thoroughly she had been unseen. The scene dissolved. She saw herself after rebirth, sharper, colder, proud of needing no one. She saw how easily justice and revenge had worn each other's faces. She saw enemies punished and allies protected, and beneath every choice, a small voice whispering that if she controlled enough, she would never be helpless again. The mirror water rose to her ankles. Her reflection walked beside her. You call it responsibility, it said. It is. And when responsibility becomes hunger? Lin Yao said nothing. The water showed Wei Han kneeling after forgetting her in Haging, shame turning his face hard. It showed Kayangsu carrying the dragon seal while pretending fear was only strategy. It showed Lion split between body and soul, each half wounded by the other's existence. Everywhere Lin Yao looked, people suffered under truths they had not chosen. You want to save them all, the reflection said. Yes. Because they deserve saving. Yes. Because if you cannot save them, what were your scars for? The question struck cleanly. Lin Yao stopped. The water rose to her knees. The mirror showed the heavenly bell in her palm, the dragon's seal beside Kaiangsu, the sea mirror beneath Lintide, all three artifacts turning toward her as if she were a road they intended to use. You fear being powerless, her reflection said, but not as much as you fear being necessary. Lin Yao laughed once without humor. That makes no sense. Does it not? The silver plane changed. She stood in a throne room made of faces. Every person she had helped stood around her, reaching. Citizens from Book 1, soldiers from Book 2, the dead of Lintide, Heijing's grieving families, even people she had not met yet, shadowed by futures the mirror refused to name. Guardian Princess. Bell Bearer. Save us. Judge us. Tell us what is true. Lin Yao tried to step back, hands caught her sleeves. No one person can be that, she said. Yet you keep accepting the role. Because someone must. There is the lie. The hands vanished. Lin Yao stood again on the silver plane, breathing hard. Her reflection faced her. Say it. Say what? The truth you keep beneath duty. Lin Yao looked away. There was nowhere to look that was not mirror. She thought of her mother asking her to stay, Wei Han looking at her like a stranger, Kaiangsu in the snow life that never happened, Lion's body and reflection both demanding the right to exist, Hai Ren calling control mercy because he feared grief. The sea mirror did not show lies. It showed the stories people used to survive until survival became a cage. Lin Yao's story had always been that if she became useful enough, necessary enough, no one could throw her away again. The water reached her waist. I am afraid, she said. The mirror waited. Her voice broke, but she did not stop. I am afraid of becoming necessary to everyone and known by no one. I am afraid they will love what I can carry, not who I am when I put it down. I am afraid that if I fail one person, every life I saved will turn into proof that I was never enough. The silver plane went still. Her reflection stepped closer, and what is the answer? Lin Yao wiped her face with a wet hand. There may not be one. That is evasion. No, that is truth. She lifted her head. I cannot become harmless. I cannot become unnecessary. I cannot undo what chose me, but I can stop pretending burden is the same as worth. The water began to lower. I can carry the bell without becoming only its sound. I can ask others to stand with me without making their pain my proof. I can save what I can, grieve what I cannot, and still be a person after. Her reflection smiled. Not kindly, proudly. Then choose the witness. The silver plane opened beneath her feet. Lin Yao saw Lion's body on one side, weeping. Lion's reflection on the other, silent and crowned. Two halves of one inheritance, both real, both incomplete. Not me, Lin Yao said. The mirror trembled. The sea mirror does not need another ruler, she said. It needs someone who remembers what denial costs from both sides. She reached toward the reflection. Her. The mirror accepted. Chapter 14, The Third Artifact. Lin Yao returned with silver light in her hair. For a moment, no one moved. She stood at the center of Lintide Square, one hand raised toward Princess Lion's reflection. The sea mirror spread beneath them like a moon laid flat, and every dead citizen of the drowned kingdom watched the choice that would end their century of repetition. The real lion understood first. No, she whispered. Her reflection turned to her. There was no triumph in its face. That made it harder. You cannot take this from me, the real lion said. I lived, I starved with exiles. I carried the blood. I crossed the coast hunted and mocked while you hid in glass. The reflection knelt before her and wrote across the mirror's surface. I carried the names. Lion struck the words with her fist. I am the princess. The reflection touched the same fist from beneath the surface. We are. The sea mirror rose between them, no longer a shard, no longer a square, but a full circle of silver framed by black coral. In its surface, the two lions faced each other, body and soul, hunger and memory, survival and witness. Cyan bowed her head. The artifact has chosen, she said. Lord Hai Ren stood beside Doctor and on the broken road, face hollow with the knowledge of what his family had hidden. Kaiangsu's dragon seal pulsed in answer to the mirror. The heavenly bell mark in Lin Yao's palm warmed, and somewhere beyond sight, the three artifacts recognized one another. The real lion shook her head like a child refusing a verdict. If she becomes witness, what happens to me? No one answered quickly enough. Lion laughed. There it is, she said, the mercy of ancient things. Lin Yao stepped toward her. You are not being punished. Easy to say when you remain whole. The words landed because they were not entirely false. Lin Yao lowered her voice. I remain responsible, that is different. The reflection extended both hands through the mirror. Real Lion stared at them. For a long time, she did not move. Then the palace behind her collapsed with a sound like mountains drowning, and the dead of Lintide began to fade at the edges. The old minister bowed to the two lions. Your Highness, he said, and for the first time the title held no lie. Real Lion wept. I wanted them to know me. The reflection's voice emerged aloud, soft as tide over stone. I did. The real Lion took her hands. Silver water climbed their arms. Lin Yao expected a scream. Instead, Lion exhaled as if setting down a load carried since birth. Her body dissolved into clear water, not destroyed, not erased, but returning to the element that had divided her. The reflection stepped out of the mirror at the same moment, gaining color, breath, and tears. Princess Lion stood whole for one heartbeat. Then the sea mirror's witness mark appeared beneath her right eye, a tiny silver crescent like a tear turned sideways. The drowned court bowed. One by one, the dead remembered their names and vanished. Not into nothing, Lin Yao felt the difference. They left the ceremony, the banquet, the repeated drowning. They moved onward like lanterns carried out of fog. Heijing watched from above as lights rose from the bay. Thousands of them. Doctor and fell to her knees. Hai Ren did not ask forgiveness. He only lowered his forehead to the stone and stayed there until the last light passed. When the final spirit faded, the sea returned. It did not crash. It flowed gently over Lintide, covering market, palace, statue, and road. The living stood on a narrow strip of silver mirror that lifted them upward like a tide made of glass. By sunrise, they stood on Heijing's harbor steps. The city was waiting. No one had forgot. Princess Lion, now whole and marked, faced the people. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. My kingdom was sacrificed, she said. Your grief was stolen. No governor, princess, or artifact can make that clean. But today, no one will be ordered to forget. The sea mirror appeared behind her, small enough to hold, vast enough to frighten. The heavenly bell rang. The dragon seal answered. The sea mirror opened. 3 lights rose into the sky, gold, bronze, and silver. They twisted together above the harbor, forming a map of the empire. At its center, the capital burned with black radiance. Then the vision sharpened. A wrist. A chain-shaped mark. A prince waking in a darkened chamber. Lin Yao knew that wrist. Her blood turned cold. Prince Rui, she whispered. Chapter 15, The Chain in the Throne Room. The message from the capital arrived 3 days after the sea returned. By then, Heijing had become a city of open doors and broken frames. People carried mirrors into the streets, not because they trusted them, but because hiding had become unbearable. Some covered the glass with cloth when grief rose too sharply. Some sat before reflections for hours, speaking to names they had recovered at dawn. Lord Hai Ren resigned before anyone could demand it. He did not flee. Lin Yao respected that more than she wanted to. He submitted the governor's seals, opened the coastal archives, and ordered every mirror water storehouse unlocked. Doctor and took charge of the medical records with the ferocity of someone making war on her own past obedience. Princess Lion remained in Heijing. The sea mirror rested in her chamber, covered by plain linen except during testimony. Citizens came to speak their memories before it, and the mirror did not soften what they said. It did not make grief elegant. It did not turn confession into absolution, but it held the truth steady when human courage shook. On the 3rd morning, an imperial courier collapsed at the harbor gate with salt in his hair and blood on his boots. Wei Han brought the sealed tube to Lin Yao without opening it. Capital mark, he said. Kaiyingsu, standing beside Princess Lion, touched the dragon seal mark beneath her collar. It started burning before he entered the city. Lin Yao took the tube. The wax bore the private seal of the inner palace. Her first thought was of traps. Her second was of Prince Rui. She broke the seal. The message contained only 5 lines. Prince Rui has awakened. The demon vein is gone. He remembers nothing after the western gate. A new mark circles his wrist. It looks like a chain. No one spoke. Outside, gulls cried over the harbor as if ordinary life had the nerve to continue. Lin Yao read the message again. The words did not improve. Wei Han's face had gone still in the way it did before battle. The prince who opened the demon gate. The prince who was used to open it, Lin Yao said. Su looked at her sharply. That distinction may matter. It will matter to him. Lin Yao folded the message. It may not matter to the chain. Princess Lion uncovered the sea mirror. Silver light filled the room. Do you want to see him? She asked. Lin Yao almost said yes. The sea mirror waited, patient and merciless. It could show Prince Rui as he was, or as Lin Yao feared him to be, or as she wished him to be, so she would not have to choose between pity and caution. She thought of the Tide trial. What lie keeps you obedient? No, Lin Yao said. Wei Han looked surprised. Not yet, she added. I will not meet him first as a reflection. The sea mirror's surface rippled, approving or amused. With ancient artifacts, the difference was rarely comforting. Cyan appeared faintly in the glass behind Lion's shoulder. Since the trial, the old guardian had become less solid each day. Not dying, exactly. Being released from the duty of refusing to die. Wise, Cyan said. The sovereign chain rules through accepted images. Traitor, savior, prince, monster, host, weapon, every label is a small collar if worn too tightly. Su crossed her arms. Can it control him? It can command what he already believes he must obey. Lin Yao closed her eyes. Prince Rui had been raised in the palace, shaped by rank, guilt, expectation, and whatever shadow had touched him through the demon gate. A chain did not need to invent prisons inside such a person. It only needed to name them duty. Wei Han said, then we return to the capital. Yes. With all 3 artifacts. Lin Yao looked at Su, then Lion. The dragon seal's witness, the sea mirror's witness, herself marked by the Heavenly Bell. They were no longer collecting legends. They were becoming a threat large enough for the final artifact to answer. Princess Lion covered the sea mirror again. Haging still needs me. So does the capital, Su said. Lion smiled faintly. I did not say I would stay. That afternoon, the city gathered at the harbor to watch them depart. Lord Hai Ren stood without official robes among the clerks opening public records. Doctor pressed packets of herbs into the soldiers' hands as if medicine could protect them from politics. Citizens bowed, not with the empty discipline Lin Yao had seen on arrival, but with the uneven sincerity of people who had regained pain and chosen not to look away. At the edge of the dock, Cyan appeared one last time in the water. Guardian Princess, she said. Lin Yao knelt by the harbor. Mirror Guardian. Cyan's fading eyes softened. When you face the chain, remember this. It will not begin by ordering you to kneel. It will begin by offering a reason why kneeling protects someone else. Lin Yao nodded. I will remember. No, Cyan said. You will want to believe. Then she was gone. The ship left Haging under a clear sky. For the first time since the Eastern Road began, the sea reflected only the sun. Lin Yao stood at the bow with Wei Han beside her, Su behind, and Princess Lion holding the covered sea mirror in both hands. Ahead lay the capital, the throne room, Prince Rui. And somewhere around his wrist, the sovereign chain was learning the shape of a living pulse. Far away in the imperial palace, a prince opened his eyes. The demon vein in his chest was silent. The chain mark on his wrist tightened. And when the servants rushed in, Prince Rui smiled with someone else's calm.